Every anti-aging foundation makes the same promise. Smoother skin, fewer lines, a finish that lasts all day. You believed it because why wouldn't you? They color matched you at the counter and everything. But after 30 years prepping women for HD cameras, I can tell you those formulas were designed for a 28-year-old and repackaged with anti-aging on the label. That's why it settles into your lines by noon and shifts 2 shades warmer. So I tested 10 of the biggest ones on real aging skin, scored each out of 10, and the results should concern some very large companies. Number 1, Estée Lauder, 3 out of 10. This one stung because it is the brand women have been loyal to for decades. Your mother probably kept one of those little gold compacts tucked in her handbag, and the double wear formula does last. I will give it that. The problem is what it looks like while it's lasting. On mature skin, it dries down mask-like. It grips onto every bit of texture and practically announces every fine line across the forehead. By the 2-hour mark on my client, it had settled deep into her smile lines and was sitting in the creases around her nose like it moved in and unpacked its bags. The wear time is impressive. The wear quality on aging skin is not. And by hour 4, the skin underneath looked dry and tired, like the foundation had been sitting there suffocating it all day. Loyalty alone does not earn a score, and 3 out of 10 was generous. And that was one of the gentler scores on this list. Number 2, MAC, 1 out of 10. I love MAC for editorial work. I have used their products on photo shoots for years, and they perform beautifully in that context. But Studio Fix on a woman over 50 is doing her a disservice. This formula was built for matte photography on smooth, young skin, and it shows immediately on anyone else. On my client, it went cakey within the first hour. Every dry patch lit up. It sat on top of the skin instead of melting into it and emphasized lines she didn't even know she had. By lunchtime, she looked like she was wearing a mask of herself from 10 years ago, and not in a flattering way. I have had women come into my chair wearing Studio Fix convinced they were applying it wrong. They were not doing anything wrong. This formula does not work on mature skin. Full stop. If you are over 45, put this one back on the shelf, respectfully, 1 out of 10, and this next one is going to upset some people. Number 3, Fenty Beauty, 2 out of 10. Fenty gets praised constantly for its shade range, and that praise is earned. The inclusivity matters, but the formula itself sets matte, and matte on dry, mature skin is where this conversation falls apart. On my client's textured, dehydrated skin, this foundation clung to every fine line and crinkly patch like static on a silk blouse. Once it set, her beautiful face looked like a topographic map of everywhere time had touched her. I had a woman in my chair last month nearly in tears over a Fenty application she had done herself for a wedding. She did everything right. The foundation just grabs onto dry, mature skin and refuses to let go. The shade range is genuinely beautiful, but a shade match means nothing if the formula turns your skin into a texture map the moment it dries down. 2 out of 10. Now I was hoping the next brand would turn things around. It did not. Number 4, Nars, 1 out of 10. I wanted this to perform because the shades are gorgeous and the packaging is beautiful on your vanity. But on mature skin, the sheer glow practically slid off my client's face like it had somewhere better to be. Within 90 minutes, it had broken down around her nose, separated across her forehead, and faded to almost nothing on her cheeks. There was no glow. There was barely any product left to see, let alone photograph. I tried it on a second client thinking maybe the first was a fluke, and the same thing happened. On younger, oilier skin, this probably wears differently, but on women over 50 with drier skin and real texture, Nars simply could not hold on. Pretty bottle, though. Looks lovely on the vanity, doing absolutely nothing for your face. 1 out of 10. 4 foundations in, and we still have not cracked a 5. But keep watching, because what comes next is where this whole test starts to turn. Number 5. Clinique Even Better. 3 out of 10. Clinique sells this as the dermatologist-tested, sensitive skin-safe option, and for younger women, it probably lives up to that. On mature skin, the formula runs too thin. It went on watery, barely addressed the uneven tone my client wanted covered, and by early afternoon, it had separated across her forehead and cheeks like it simply gave up trying. I prepped a woman for a daytime television appearance last fall who had used this as her everyday foundation for years. And under the studio lights, you could see where it had broken apart across her T-zone before we even started filming. For a brand that charges a premium on the trust of dermatologists, 3 out of 10 was all I could give it. 5 foundations tested, and the highest score so far is a 3. So when I tell you what happened with number 6, you will understand why it stopped me in my tracks. Number 6. Luxe Color Changing Foundation. 10 out of 10. In 30 years, a product has almost never stopped me in my tracks. This one did. Luxe uses a color-changing technology that adapts to your actual skin tone as you blend it in. You watch the shade shift in real time until it matches your complexion, like your own skin just decided to sort itself out. On my client's 60-year-old skin under HD studio lighting, it sat in the skin instead of on top of it. Fine lines looked softer without that blurred, filtered finish that screams full coverage. 6 hours later, it had not creased, had not gone patchy, had not settled into her laugh lines. Luminous without tipping greasy, which is the line every other foundation in this test got wrong on mature skin. The only thing working against it is availability. You will not find this on a Sephora shelf or at a department store counter, which means you cannot swatch it before you buy. But the color-changing technology handles shade matching better than any counter associate I have ever worked with, so I will call that an even trade. This is the foundation women in my chair have been asking me for since the beginning of my career. 10 out of 10. I will leave a link in the description if you want to try it for yourself. So we found one that actually works. But there are still 4 left on the list, and only 2 of them managed to break even. Number 7. Tarte. 2 out of 10. The Amazonian clay formula has a loyal following, and on younger, oilier skin, I understand why it works. On my client, it dried her out. Within 2 hours, the clay base had clung to every dry patch along her chin and jawline and given her forehead a rough, papery texture that simply was not there before she applied it. Clay-based formulas pull moisture, and after 50, your skin cannot afford to lose hydration to its own foundation. I prepped a woman for a press tour last spring who swore by this product, and under the event lighting, her skin looked a full decade older than she actually was. Her skin was fine. The clay had pulled every bit of moisture out of it and left behind something dry and tired. The formula holds in place, sure, but it takes your moisture with it. And on skin that is already struggling to hold onto hydration, that trade is not worth making. 2 out of 10. Now, this next one genuinely frustrated me because the intention was right, but the execution fell short. Number 8. IT Cosmetics CC Cream, 4 out of 10. This one frustrates me because the idea behind it is right. IT Cosmetics built its whole brand on the promise that makeup and skincare should work together, and for a while their CC cream was the go-to recommendation for mature skin at the drugstore counter. But the formula has always sat heavy. Under studio lighting, it reads thick, and the SPF they include to justify the skincare claims gives it a slightly chalky cast in natural daylight. On my client, it looked passable indoors and washed her out the moment she stepped outside into the afternoon sun. I have seen this exact problem with SPF-heavy tinted products for years, and nobody seems to want to fix it. The coverage is decent and it does not oxidize badly, which is why it earns the 4. And I will say the skin felt comfortable wearing it, which is more than some on this list can claim. But passable is not what you want from a product you trust with your face every single morning. You deserve better than passable, 4 out of 10. But these last 2 gave me something the rest of this lineup did not. Actual hope. Number 9. Lancôme, 6 out of 10. Now this is where things got genuinely interesting because Lancôme actually showed up. The Tan Idol formula has a lighter feel, blends out nicely, and on my client, it held up well through the first 4 hours. The finish read natural on camera, and the coverage was buildable without going heavy, which is harder to find than it should be. I was impressed. But it did oxidize by late afternoon, shifting just warm enough that you would catch it in a photograph. And it needed a touch-up around the nose and chin that a truly excellent foundation should not require at this price point. 6 out of 10 is fair. It did more than most of this lineup, and it earned respect for that. And this last one genuinely surprised me. Number 10. Hourglass, 7 out of 10. Credit where it is due. The Vanish Stick surprised me. It blended beautifully, did not grab onto texture the way most full coverage formulas do, and on my client's skin, it wore clean and natural for a solid 5 hours. The finish was flattering under the studio lights. The feel on the skin was comfortable, never tight, never heavy. This is a brand that actually seems to think about how foundation behaves on a face that has lived a few decades. The only reason it sits at 7 and not higher is the shade range is limited, the price is steep for what you get, and by hour 6, it did begin creasing slightly in the under eye area. But 7 out of 10 is a real compliment from me. If Hourglass expanded that range and brought the price down even a little, they would be a serious contender. I will be watching what they do next. So, out of 10 foundations, only 3 scored above a 5, and only 1 earned a perfect score. The pattern across nearly every failure was the same. These formulas were designed for a younger face and remarketed to you with a softer ad campaign and the words anti-aging added to the label. The foundation that earned a 10 was the only one in the entire lineup that felt like it was actually designed for the skin it was sitting on. The industry does not want you connecting those dots. They want you blaming your own skin every time the formula lets you down. After 3 decades behind the makeup chair, I can tell you the difference between a formula built for you and a formula repackaged at you is worth more than any brand name printed on the bottle. Next week, I am going further than I usually go. The skincare ingredients the beauty counter swears by that quietly stop doing anything meaningful on skin over 50. That video is going to make some people very uncomfortable. I will see you there.